Welcome everybody. This is Aptora's webinar. We're about to get started. I'm just waiting for a few extra people to sign in. We'll get started just in a moment. Thank you. Hey everybody, it's James over at Aptora. I'm glad you're here with me. We are looking at about 127 attendees, and I show about 14 more signing in and getting the audio going. So we're going to start in just a moment. If you have any questions during the demonstration, please let me know. You can type in your Q&A in the window, and I'll try to get those answered. Now I see one question is, I don't have any sound. Hopefully they have sound now. But if they don't have any sound, I can't help them. Another question that just came in is, are these being recorded? Yes, they are. All of these are. This one's being recorded. I'm going to record all of these. And that way I can share them with you when we're done. All right. I'm going to rearrange my screen a little bit, and we will get started. There's a few people still trying to get in, but I don't want to wait for them. I know your time is valuable, and we will get to it. Let me go ahead and get my PowerPoint up. All right. Trouble with my PowerPoint. Hang on there just a minute. It wants to open up on the wrong monitor. Oh well. We'll just do it this way then. Okay, here's a picture of the Q&A window. In case you don't know how it works, you should see a Q&A button right here, and you can use that to answer questions. And at the end, I will answer those as much as I can. Let's go over today's agenda real fast. Please keep in mind, I won't be doing any training because we don't really have time to train you on the software per se. What I hope to do is show you some of the latest features and capabilities that maybe you're not aware of, and briefly explain what they do. We should have help topics on all these things, and that should answer your questions. I want to talk about our new software programming mantra here at Aptora. I want to show you some of the major features that we've added over the last several months. So I'm going to go back in time a little bit. Now, in future webinars, I'm going to be talking about only the things that we've added since the last update. But since this is the first webinar of its kind, I've got a lot to say. Generally, we won't have so many things to play catch up with. Also, I want to tell you about what we plan to release by the end of the year, and I should be able to touch on what we plan to do in the beginning of next year. And then finally, I'll try to address as many of your written questions as you can. I have them populating on the screen here, and I'll do as much as I can to answer those. So first thing I want to do is talk about our programming mantra. The these are new rules we have in programming, and they've been very successful, so I thought I'd share them with you. Number one, first, do no harm. We don't want to break anything. We've been working really hard to not break anything in Total Office Manager and all of Aptora software. So that's our first rule, is don't break anything. Hopefully you've noticed that our updates are way more reliable and we're not breaking as many things as we used to. And I admit it, that's been an issue. The program is quite large. It's hard to go in there and do anything to it without breaking something. Total Office Manager has approximately 1.7 million lines of code, 435 reports, and about 530 forms. And that doesn't even include Form Builder, mobile, and all the other programs. Number two, produce more reliable updates, as I said. Number three, make the software faster, more stable, and get rid of those yellow screens. Hopefully you've noticed you have far fewer yellow screens. We've reduced that number by 92%. We've made the software way faster this year. If you haven't updated recently, you might notice that the program is much faster in many ways. Lots of reports have gotten faster. Assessing finance charges, statements, producing statements, and so forth has gotten a lot quicker. Number four, we want to stop programming for dysfunctionality. Now, one of our clients once told me that. He called me up to complain about the software, got me on the phone, and he said, "You know what your problem is, James?" "What's that?" Because I have many. I just didn't know which one he was going to point out. He said, "Your company programs for dysfunctionality." And then he went on to explain something that made a lot of sense to me, and that is, we program for people's business dysfunctionality. We don't always think about what the software really should do and what businesses should do. We often program just because somebody's on the phone and they're mad, and we're programming for their company's dysfunctionality. And we have really stopped that. We have put a lot more thought into everything we're doing, and there has to be a good business reason for those changes. And number five, we're only adding features that the vast majority of you would want in the software. So we're trying to avoid programming, again, just because one person wants that change. So we're relying on your feedback for our software, and we appreciate that feedback. And that has been driving our programming and development at Aptora. All right, so let's get into the software. Let me close that guy there. And I'm going to put a checklist up here and move through this checklist. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this information center. Let's open up our customer job list. Now, remember, the things I'm going to talk about could have been added many, many months ago. I'm not going to go back to years ago. We've had some things in here for a long time, and I don't want to try to cover them. But I'm going to talk about some of the things we've added recently. Even if they're insignificant, I'm hoping that it'll help you understand how to navigate the program and find the things that we have added. Speaking of that, let's open up a browser real quick and go to support.aptora. So you know what? I should start this by reintroducing you to this website, support.aptora.com. Here you will find that we've completely remodeled the website. We have product notifications, support tickets, videos, register for webinars, things like that. Let's go to product notifications. This is where you will be able to sign up. If you haven't done so already, you'll be able to sign up for product notifications. So you're going to be getting an email that says, hey, we have an update out, and here are the things that we've done in the update. If you haven't done that, please sign up. If you'd like to read prior release notes, then you'll find them here. So let's click here and have a look. So there's our latest release. We're about to put one out. If we don't put it out tonight, we'll be putting it out in the next day or two. But this is our latest release, 1022, and click on that. Now you'll be able to see all the things that we've been doing to the software, and you can go back in time, I don't know, years, I guess. I'm not sure how far back we go, but we've been putting these up here, even the old ones. So here you'll see fixes and improvements. You might see feature request. That was something that somebody asked for. So if it says feature request, it probably wasn't Aptora. we're not doing too many feature requests of our own. We're past those days. Somebody wanted, in this case, a sales opportunity yes or no column added to the invoice list. So let's go take a look at that. If you read that, you might open up the customer job list. So added sales opportunity yes or no to the invoice list. Let's go to the invoice list, in fact, here. And then we'll go to Form Preferences, Show Columns. Now, all of the major lists have this feature, Show Columns. This form allows you to add or subtract columns. So that's where you would be able to see new fields that we've added, and you would be able to turn those on. So that is the invoice list. In fact, what you could do is go to the customer job list or any of the major lists and do Show Columns, and you'll see the same thing right there. By the way, one complaint we've gotten from many of you, and we get it, is when you open up some forms, so-called modal forms. So these are forms that open up and you're not allowed to do anything else in the software. We call that a modal form. That's the technical term. People are complaining that they're going in the upper left-hand corner. And we're working on trying to make that more centered. The problem, though, is that with all the new monitors and resolutions and all the complexities of displaying information, these forms can get lost behind another form. And if that happens, there's no way to fix it. You have to just close the program. So rather than take a chance that this form would somehow find its way behind the customer job list, we're putting it in the corner. But we know people don't like that, so we are working on it. But this is where you would add or subtract columns. Now here's a speed tip. Get rid of the columns you don't need. If you see columns on any list that you don't want, go to this preferences form and get rid of the columns that you don't need, because it makes the program faster, okay? All right, so that is how to read the release notes. Remember, I had the release note in front of me, feature added, and we went and found that. That's how to get to it. Okay, let's talk about a few more things. Customer job list. As long as we're in here, let's open up I got all these warnings on, past due, deadbeat guy here, and lost the screen. Let's go get it. There it is. See how I found that? Went up to window. Not sure if you're aware of it. That's how you can go grab your various forms that might be open. So if I open this guy and open this guy, then you'll see them all here. But I digress, don't I? All right, let's close that. Contacts tab. What I wanted to show you was under the menu button, you also have for a preferences form, like I showed you before. This one is show columns under the contact tab. So these are the columns that are available to you. And you might notice we've added a new one, and that is called roles. So you would have the ability to go in and add, oh, you know what? We haven't released it yet. I'm sorry. That should come out in the next update. So we'll have that in the next update. I'm not running that. So you have to trust me on this. You will find a new column called roles, and you will be able to select whether or not they are a decision maker, if they are a gatekeeper, if they're a blocker, etc. So after you update, you should see that in your revision notes. Go to your show columns, and you'll find roles available to you. All right, multiple images. I wanted to make sure everybody is aware that you can now add multiple images to items in Total Office Manager. So for example, let's just open up any item at random, and we'll go to menu, and we'll go to image. It used to be that you could only select one image. There was a time where we thought that was enough. But many months ago, it's been in there quite a while, so this may be old news to you, but many months ago, we added the ability to select multiple images. You just simply select from here and click another empty slot, select another one, click an empty slot, select another one, you get the idea. And then you can decide which one is going to be the primary image by checking that box. Click OK and be sure to hit Save and Close. Now you have multiple images. Where that's going to be handy for you is in mobile, where we have vastly improved the sales presentation in mobile. So Aptora Mobile 2, we've been working on the My Flat Rate book, the sales presentation system, and we are taking advantage of those extra images that you can now select in your items. Let's open up a work order. Now, I know this is just fire, random, boom, 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 one feature after another. Remember, I said we wouldn't be training so much as I'd be pointing out new features for you. I wanted to show you the new stage feature in work orders. This was a very popular feature request. People asked for a user-definable stage selection, and that is right here. So you can have different stages, such as stage 1, stage 2, parts on order, parts have arrived, etc. You can add your own, so whatever you want to put in here. I'll do stage 3. And so now we have another stage. Now those are sorted alphabetically, and if that's not working out for you, then you can decide on the order, and now you've got another stage. So that feature will hopefully help some of you who wanted to track work orders where things needed to be done, such as parts needed to be ordered, or we needed to reschedule them, or something to that effect. Hopefully you're aware of the callback feature. That's been in there quite a while. One feature that we've added based on, again, user feedback is the repeating work order feature and the multi-day work order. A repeating work order is a work order that repeats on a schedule of your choice, such as every Monday for the next 52 weeks. A multi-day work order is a work order that spans 2 or more days. So the multi-day work order is perfect for those of you that have, say, a 5 or 10 or 15-day job going. You can create a multi-day work order that starts on Monday the 1st and maybe ends on Friday the 20th. You also have the ability to assign multiple people to a multi-day work order, and it will automatically create one master work order for the entire job and duplicate those work orders for each of the people associated with that job. There's a really good help topic on this at the support website. If you'd like to go there and check it out, it should explain that thoroughly, but I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of the repeating work order and the multi-day work order. Very handy. I'm looking at my list on my monitor here, deciding what do they want to see. And I think I want to show you the cutoff date next. Let's go to Preferences and go to Cutoff Date. Under Company Preferences, we have not only the cutoff date, which hopefully all of you have seen. So what this allows you to do, since we're here, what this allows you to do is establish a date where people can no longer modify your financials. Now, we have improved on this over 2019. It's been many months ago, but we did find a few nooks and crannies in the software where you could maybe change the money and you could possibly affect your financials. I think we got them all. Like there were discount dates and a few very obscure things that we found, and those have been updated, but that's been many months ago. What we added this summer, or early this year probably, is the ability to warn you if the transaction date is, say, 30 days in the future or maybe 30 days in the past. You can, of course, establish whatever value you want. Now, the idea behind this feature is that if you fat finger a date, maybe you type in 2119. If you fat finger a date, the software will warn you, hey, did you really mean 2119? Did you really mean this date? Once in a while, people will call tech support with questions about why the reports don't look proper or correct. And what we discover, not always, but sometimes what we were discovering is that they fat fingered 2119 or typed in 1902 instead of 2019. They typed in 1902. The software will accept 1902. Chances are that's not the date you meant, but prior to us putting this feature in, the software really didn't know that that wasn't the correct date. So please take advantage of that feature. That is a company-wide preference. That's why it's under company preferences, in case you weren't aware of that. All right, preferences. I thought about going into more preferences, but you probably saw me thinking there. There's so many preferences, I decided I'm getting out of there. But you know what? I talked myself into going into one more. I want to talk to you briefly about our form approval, and that is under Security, Company Preferences. If you haven't seen it, right down here, require approval to print an email. What you can do is you can set this up so that your coworkers need approval before they can print or email an invoice or an estimate or a credit or a purchase order. And you can even decide on a certain value. So I might say, for example, you guys can print invoices if you want to, but if they're over $1,000, then they have to be approved. If you want to turn that feature on, you simply check the boxes here and decide on the value. So maybe it's over $1,000 and maybe the estimate is over $1,000. I'll go ahead and do that and I'll click close. Now, when you go to company, user list security, you can establish who has the ability to approve those forms. I'll click next, next. Here, you'll see approval process. Now, this would be disabled if you hadn't gone and checked those boxes that we just checked. Otherwise, they'd be disabled. But now they're enabled. You might remember we checked 2 of those boxes, 2 out of the 4. So 2 out of 4 are enabled here. I might give Ashley permission to approve invoices and approve estimates. And that way, only until she approves them could they be emailed or printed. All right, so you might enjoy that particular feature. And by the way, the approval process is written to the audit trail. So the audit trail is keeping track of who approved what and when. All right, custom data views. I think I'm going to go to that next. So if you're wondering what I'm looking at, I've got a list here right there of ideas of things to talk to you about. And I'm going through that list as we speak. Let's go to reports and custom data views. A lot of users are not aware of the custom data view feature. The idea behind the custom data view feature is to give you the ability to create your own reports based on lots of different pieces of information. When you open this form, please keep in mind that you may not have permission to grab any of this data. So for example, you might come in here and see something like PO reimbursables. Here you are. And it might be disabled. That means you don't have permission to view the PO reimbursables data view. You'll have to go to company, user list security, and give them permission to view this data view. As we add custom data views, you won't have permission for those custom data views. It doesn't matter who you are in the company. We don't know if you should be able to see it. So you won't have permission to view the custom data view. You can go give yourself permission if you have that ability. If you have permissions to the permission form, you can give yourself security to see those. So here's a custom data view called PO reimbursables. Now what can you do with it? First of all, let's click the columns button and this will show you what pieces of information are available. So there's a lot of good info here. And you can sort with various criteria. And you can rearrange these columns, and you can get rid of columns, and you can right-click, and you can open an Excel. But you might want to come over to Reports and click Setup. Now, I have one I've been working on. I've been working on a bill of materials report. You won't see this because I've been working on it for myself. But the bill of materials report can be edited or previewed. Let's just edit it so I can show you about it. Here's my bill of materials report. Now, what you do is you simply drag these various fields out onto the canvas. And when you're ready, you can hit the preview button. And if you like what you see, maybe you're done. You can see I put a footer in here, I've got the header, I can put in totals, I can keep going. But at some point, what you can do is give it a name or do a save as, and you've got a custom data view, a custom report. So we call those custom data views. And there's a lot of custom data views. For example, let's go to a new one, fairly new one, and that is the mobile payment review. So maybe you would like to review all the payment methods and activity that's been going on in mobile. This custom data view loads the grid with information. And again, if it's okay with you, you can just look it over and close the form. Maybe you just want to see something real quick here. Or you could right click, open it in Excel, or go to reports, go to setup, go to add new, and build one. And again, just drag things out onto the canvas, preview when you're ready, and give the whole thing a name. One last thing I want to say about custom data views, because we can spend a lot of time on them. When you open that form, down at the very bottom is an option to download custom data views, both new and updated. So let's click Download Update Views. A form pops up, and it'll tell you if you've never downloaded it. It'll tell you if you have it and there's an update available, but that's where you get them. So you can select the ones you want, and then you can hit Update Selected Views when you're ready, and you'll have those. But remember, keep in mind, even though you might be the person that downloaded the custom data views, you still might not be able to use them because you don't have permission. So again, you would go here, find your name or the name of the person you want to set permissions for, and then you might use the jump tool to jump down to custom data views here and give yourself permission for those. Now, if you're the boss or you're in full control of your company, you might want to come into user security once in a while, click menu and click select all, and that way you know you have permission for everything. So by clicking select all, you've checked every single box, given yourself permission for every single thing in the program. You might want to uncheck delete because really nobody should be deleting. You want to inactivate, you want to void, but you probably don't want to delete. I would give almost nobody permission to delete. So what I'll do is I'll go to unselect all, delete, and there we are. But once in a while, come in here and do select all, give yourself permission for everything, click finish, wait a few seconds, and now you have permission for everything. Now, permissions get loaded when you load the software. So when you first load the software, actually when you log in, your permissions are loaded into RAM, into memory. So if you want to avoid having to log out and log back in, you can click Window and click Refresh Security. And Refresh Security will do the same thing without you having to log out and log back in. Now I'm going to click Close and get rid of these forms. And I'm going to go to the Customer Equipment list. And we're going to open up a piece of equipment. I wanted to make sure you were aware of the relatively new, this year, Equipment Watch List. Have you ever gone out and worked on a furnace or a rooftop unit and you noticed that the heat exchanger was rusted and you cleaned it out real good and discovered it was okay? It didn't rust through, but you want to keep your eye on it. Well, this is the place to do it. You would open up that particular piece of equipment, you would check the box, and then you might go to Memo and go into Notes and add notes about that heat exchanger. In mobile, there will be a red notice telling you that that piece of equipment is on the watch list. Very important, because when you're dealing with dangerous things like a flue assembly that you found that was bad and you warned the person and they told you forget it, I'm not doing it, and you still got a signature, you might put them on a watch list. You cleaned a heat exchanger, heating season's coming, so this is timely. You clean a heat exchanger, you don't like the way it looks, but it's still safe, put it on the watch list. The office, by the way, can go through and find everything that's been put on the watch list. You might notice that the equipment list has that same form preferences, show columns, rather, the same show columns preference. And there's a lot of columns here, including complete contact info. So what the office could do, down and dirty quick method, is put this into Excel. They could filter for who's on the watch list, and they could quickly do a direct mail piece or an email right through Outlook or your choice of programs. You could also use the marketing list generator for most of those types of things, but this is a better place to go if you're specifically looking for people that have equipment on the watch list. All right, so that's the watch list. You know what, as long as I'm here, I'm going to show you an old feature, the Smart List. So we have User Smart List, we have Global Smart List. If you're not using this feature, it's really handy. Let's say, for example, that I wanted you to review all of the equipment that's on the watch list, or I want you to review certain inventory items from the item list. You could create a global smart list. So I'll go ahead and click New Smart List, and I'll type in webinar example, and I'll make it global. Click OK. Now all of you should see it. So when you open up the customer equipment list, down here in the lower left-hand corner, you should see webinar example, and you click on it and there's nothing there. So not too exciting. But what if we go back and add something to it? So I'm going to add something to it. Or, in fact, you notice I have a global filter already called watch list. So let's add those to the smart list. So I right-click after highlighting all 5 of them. I right-click, and down here it says add to a new smart list or add to an existing smart list. Form comes up. There's only one. Check the box. You can add to 2 or more if you wanted to. Click OK. Now everybody in the office, so everyone using the software, will come down to webinar example, smart list, and they'll see those items. Now when they deal with them, they can right-click and do remove. Deal with it, right-click, remove. Deal with it, right-click, remove. Get the idea. All of the major lists have the smart list feature. Really handy for inventory control. For example, I want you to count up 50 items. I want you to count up 50 items. I want you to count up 50 items. So I could create 3 different smart lists with each person's name on it, and I don't even have to ask them, how are you doing counting up those items, right? Because I can go to the smart list and I can see the number. Is it 50, 45, 30, or whatever? I know you're doing your job. That's the smart list feature. Really handy. One of my favorite features, but I think a lot of people don't use it. Speaking of a great feature that a lot of people don't use, let's go back to the invoice item list and let's search for R410. R410. There you are. And I'll double click or just hit enter to open it. And so here's refrigerant. And by the way, like that part number, the part number makes sense. R410 Alpha 25 is a good part number. So imagine, for example, if I had an EMT connector. I would type in EMT, and maybe it's a half-inch EMT connector, and maybe it's straight, and maybe it's a set screw type. Well, there you go. That's a pretty good part number. The problem is when we get it from one company, that's their part number, and we get it from another company, and that's their part number, and some other company has that part number, and you get the idea. So although R410A25 is a good part number, we tend not to use sensical part numbers because we use the manufacturer's part number or the supplier's part number. Well, Total Office Manager has solved that. If you go down to Menu and click Alias, and if you don't see that feature, you turn it on in Preferences. Go to Preferences, Items, Company. Open Alias. What this allows you to do is actually type in the part number from your supplier. So if you buy these from Carrier, if you buy these from Ferguson, Granger, Hodesco, Johnstone Supply, Lennox, whoever, Ace Hardware, Home Depot. This gives you an opportunity to type in the part number of the vendor that you buy it from. And now you can scan their barcodes. So here we have a fitting. We have a barcode that means nothing to most companies right there. But our software will allow you to put in that barcode number in that form. And now you can scan that using mobile or Total Office Manager. Mobile or Total Office Manager. You can scan it and it'll recognize that barcode no matter what you decided to number it as. So that alias feature is really important. If you're interested in that, again, we're not here to train on it. There's a good help topic, and I might encourage you to call Aptora and sign up for training, and we can teach you about the alias feature, how to use it, where it shows up, etc. All right, let's talk about the new schedule board. Here's the new schedule board. Many of you are using the schedule board. Some of you might still be using the old schedule board. We're trying to win you over. We're trying to win you over and get you to use the new one. Please keep in mind, the new schedule board was absolutely positively built to be inside its own monitor. So you need to have another monitor. I actually have 3. And look, for $120 a piece, it's dirt cheap to have 3 monitors. I've got 3 monitors. 2 monitors, got my laptop right here. This schedule board should be on its own monitor. And that way you get to take advantage of all this real estate. It doesn't live within Total Office Manager. It needs to live on its own monitor, okay? So one thing I wanted to tell you is click here. You can go down to Selected Employees. And here, no matter what your profile setting is, because you notice my profile is default, meaning show me everything. I can modify the look real quick no matter what. Even if I'm in default or if I'm in some specific profile, I can get rid of somebody like accounting and admin. I put those in for housekeeping. That gives me a temporary place to put things. Anyway, if I don't want to look at them, I can quickly get rid of them. Also, any of your hourly employees, you will be able to see how many hours they have worked this week. Now, I'm actually in a future date, so nobody's worked any hours. This is July 7th, 2020. Nobody's worked any hours. But imagine being able to see someone at 30 hours and someone at 39 hours. You might send the person with 30 hours so that you can avoid overtime. The whole idea behind that column right here, the whole idea behind that column was to help you avoid overtime if you can. And also to give you the ability to quickly add or subtract people just to save time. Now, as long as we're here, we can look at appointments. These would be not scheduled work orders. You've got a filter here to show you just today, no date, or a month and year of your choice. You can look at tools and equipment that's available to be assigned. This allows you to assign equipment to a work order so you can schedule equipment like you schedule people. Just simply drag the piece of equipment onto the work order or open the work order and you can assign it there. GPS tracking, these would be the various devices that you're tracking at that moment. That's a list of them. We saw selected employees. You also have select departments. This would give you the ability to quickly select a department or unselected department rather than use the profile feature. Hopefully you're using the profile feature because it's like having multiple schedule boards in one. You can flip back and forth. So here I could look at just one employee, or I might go to new construction, or I might flip over to just the service technicians, whatever works for me. If you right-click on a work order, you might notice there is a new quick edit notes option. So click that. This panel opens up and it allows you to quickly modify or edit the work order. So here we're looking at work order 261 and I can quickly edit the work order. I can change all the various properties that you see here. It's virtually everything that you would find if you opened the work order. Not everything, but all the important things, all the things that you would quickly change are right here. Also, you can quickly change notes add notes right there. So to get to it, go to Quick Edit and type in your notes, and be sure to hit the Save button, by the way, right down there, hit Save. You also have info stamps, print button for each box, or print all. Now, one cool thing about this feature, by the way, is notice it says work order 320. Watch when I click on other work orders. Notice how it gives me the opportunity to edit other work orders without having to close that form, which I accidentally did. So that gives you the ability to just go through these and make changes. You do need to hit the Save button, though. All right, so those are some of the things about the new schedule board. A speed tip I would have for you is, let's go to Edit. One thing that would make the program a little bit faster is if you turn off the overdue notice, and a lot of people don't like it anyway. The overdue notice right down here, show flashing overdue work orders. What happens when that feature is turned on is work orders flash telling you that they're overdue. Now, that seemed like a good idea when we put it in, but a lot of people don't like it, so we turned it into a preference, and it turns out it makes the schedule board a little bit faster because the software doesn't have to keep trying to calculate whether or not the work order is overdue. And that makes the whole thing run a little bit quicker. By the way, some people have commented that the new schedule board takes a long time to load. It does. We did not put a lot of energy into making it load fast because our thought was you would load it once or twice a day. They've also said that scrolling is slower than the old board, and that's true. It is a bit slower. It's gotten a lot faster lately, so if you haven't tried it lately, please try it again. But we are constantly working on the speed of the refresh, as we call it, trying to make it as fast as we can. It is a bit slower than the old one. The reason why is it does a lot more than the old one. There's a lot more information that's being loaded on this screen that the old one just didn't have. Speaking of that, let's go back to Edit, and let's go to Work Order Layout. One thing that you may or may not know is you can now control the layout of the work order. So you notice here I have City on the top. Some people think that's a great idea. You have to have City on the top. Are you kidding me? That's what I've heard. Other people have said, that's stupid. Why would you want City at the top? So obviously no one can agree. That's why we have, 3,000 preferences in the software. Each preference is basically a disagreement. This is no different. People cannot agree on the ordering, so we just had the do-it-yourself ordering kit for work orders. You simply decide what fields are visible and in what order, and you can do it here. You also have your color options, as you might know, and the general tab with various preferences there. All right, so that's a little bit about the new schedule board. I think that covers everything I wanted to say. There's a lot more we could talk about in the new board. Hopefully you're using it. Please use the schedule board. Please give us feedback. We appreciate bad news, good news. We learn from it. We have gotten emails from people that say this whole thing stinks. We don't like it. Here's why. A lot of that's already been addressed, but there probably are remaining issues that we could address, but we want to hear from you because we really want it to be as good as it can be. We're not really programming for us anymore. We're programming for you, so we appreciate hearing from you. One last thing, you see this little arrow up here? I don't know how easily you can see it, but there's a little arrow right under the X. If you click it, it gives you a little extra real estate. And you can also drag this area over right there so that you have a lot more viewing capability. So you might find that helpful. Another thing, and then I'll move on, is the Excel type filters. You can add or subtract columns on this unscheduled area. You can add or subtract columns. You can rearrange columns, but you also have the ability to do Microsoft Excel type filtering on any of those columns. and you can get quite carried away with the complexity. So you can create extremely complicated filters here, and if you ever get too many filters applied and you want to get rid of all of them, just click Clear All Filters, and it will clear every filter that you have. This is that button that allows you to add or subtract columns. You can also group information if you'd like. So for example, here's 24-hour fitness. Let's drag them up into the group area right there. And I'm having trouble grabbing that with my mouse. You can grab one of these and group them. All right, I'm going to try again. There it is. Okay, so group by customer. I was clicking the wrong thing. Group by customer. Here we go. This allows you to group that list by customer. You could also then group it by, say, status. Now they're grouped by customer and they're grouped by status. If you'd like to get rid of it, just do it right there and then drag something else. Group them by type. And now you've grouped all of them by type. And then you could group those by then status. So now they're type and status. Obviously, you could never do that with the old board. We had to give up on the old board because it was written in such a way that it was hard to maintain. You could think of it as like the foundation of a building. We couldn't do any more with the building because of the foundation. We completely rewrote the schedule board simply because we wanted to do things like this, and it was just not possible. So please give the new board a try. If you haven't received the email yet, we should be sending an email out fairly soon with a PDF or a link telling you all the things that the new board can do that the old board can't. And it also has some information about what we plan to do in the future, programming-wise. Speaking of that, let's go to the Maps tab and have a look at this real quick. This map would show you where your work orders are. It would also show you where your mobile app is located, but it can also show you where your Verizon Connect devices are. The reason why I came in here is I wanted to let you know that in the coming weeks, we've added Network Fleet and we've added Fleetmatics to the list of companies that we track. I posted on Facebook, blackbeltcontracting.com, LinkedIn. I posted all over the internet. I asked people, hey, what GPS tracking companies do you use? And the vast majority of the replies were one of those three. It was Fleetmatics and Network Fleet. And so we decided we would add those, and that's what we've done. That should be coming out very soon. Probably next week or the week after would be my guess. All right. Another thing I wanted to mention is before we go into mobile, we have added the ability to accept payment through Interbank. Interbank is a company that specializes in home remodeling financing, heating, air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, add a room addition, whatever. That's what they specialize in. It's bank financing, real bank. It's a real bank, bank financing. We added that financing ability in mobile. But before I go into mobile, I wanted to briefly tell you where you set it up. You go to the gateway list and you set up your current interbank financing here. So the first thing you have to do is you have to be an interbank customer. Go to interbank.com, sign up, and they will eventually give you a certain number of financing scenarios, such as 0% down, 60-month loan, or whatever. You'll put those in here. Now remember, we're not training, so I'm not going to go over it specifically, but I did want to let you know it gets set up here, and then it automatically shows up in the mobile software, which I am going to open right now. I think I'm going to do the browser version of mobile. Let's get that opened here. All right, it's opened. There we go. Okay, so a few things I wanted to talk about in mobile is the extensive amount of work we've been doing to fine-tune the program. We have been adding a lot of preferences, reluctantly, to be honest. Remember, preferences are almost always the result of our industry not agreeing on what's correct. So we've been putting in a lot of preferences, but they are handy. Good software, I think, is going to have a lot of preferences, and there's just no way to avoid it. Most of us have different ways of running our company, and all of the extensive preferences that we offer allow you to do that. So to check them out, just go to Settings, and you'll see the various preferences in here, and maybe check out, say, flat rate pricing settings here, and you might check out the service agreement settings. And if any of this doesn't look familiar to you, it's probably because we've added it since you've updated, or maybe you never went in here and looked around, maybe you didn't care. But there are a lot of settings in here. So for example, signature settings. You would think it'd be easy for us to have a signature box and put some words under it and everybody would be okay with those words, but that's not how it happened. Nobody liked those words. So over time, this has been in here a long time, but I thought it'd be a good thing to show you. Over time, we realized we're going to have to offer our users the ability to customize the words under all the signature boxes that appear in mobile. There they are, if you didn't know they existed. You also have the ability to customize your invoice settings, PO settings, display settings, grid settings. It just goes on and on. So if you want to change the display, what people see when they first log in, you can do it here. You can customize their home page. You can decide how many search results they get when they do a search, and it goes on and on. I'll show you one more, and then I'll move on to security. Let's go to grid settings. A lot of work has gone into allowing you to customize the grids in mobile. So for example, when you open up a customer job list, you've got the various columns like you do in Total Office Manager. Well, we've added the ability for you to customize that to a certain degree. Here, for example, we're looking at the work order list, grid as we call it, and you can decide if you want the work order number, priority, customer name, etc. And you can decide on the display order, and then when you're ready, click Update. And then you can move on. So you have the ability to customize the lists or grids for work orders, timesheets, sales opportunities, special order parts. You see that list, customer equipment, etc. One thing you might like is the calendar pop-up can be customized. You can decide what fields you want to see. So here, these fields are available to you. You can decide on the display order. This is a lot like what I showed you in the new schedule board. You can do it here in mobile as well. You can go in and change the various calendars and other elements in the grid settings, and be sure to hit Update Settings. All right, so a lot of preferences. Now let's go to security. We've been adding a lot more security, so we've been getting more granular, as we call it, with user permissions and what they can see and do. First thing we did is we updated this list. We click on Ashley Adams. This is more extensive than it used to be. Again, it depends on how long it's been since you've updated. But if you come in here for the first time, you'll notice that there are a lot more view permissions available to you. There's a lot more granularity to this list, meaning there's a lot more options to say, yes, you can see this, no, you can't. Yes, you can look at it, but you can't edit it. You can't inactivate it or whatever. So the list has gotten quite long. And then we've also added a lot of permissions for the various features down here. We've recently reorganized it by adding these expanders, but this is where you can decide if they can see certain things, do certain things at more of a miscellaneous level. Remember, most of these represent somebody calling and saying, I can't believe you allow this. I can't believe my guys can see that. So, as an example, the vendor list used to show the balance that we owed the vendor. The customer list used to show the balance the customer owed us. People would say, I don't want my technicians being able to see that information. So that became a preference. It became a security preference. So have a look at these. If you haven't been here in a while, under work order, there's some good ones, like do you want them to see one work order per day? Do Do you want them to see the next work order after that? Do you want them to see their first work order for tomorrow? A lot of good preferences in here. We don't have any recommended templates because that's almost impossible to recommend anything. I don't want to sound cynical, but every time we recommend something, people just say they don't like it. They don't like that recommendation. So it's easier to not have a lot of recommendations. It's really easier just to give people as much flexibility as we can possibly give them. Let me have a look, keeping an eye on my clock here. Let me show you the My Flat Rate book. We have been improving the whole sales presentation part of the software. In the flat rate book, you'll notice it probably looks different, again, depending on when you were in there last, but you might notice there is an add button. You can add that to the cart. So let's take a look at our cart. Here's where our multiple images come into effect. We can have multiple images for each one of our tasks. You can add one or more tasks to the cart. So that way you can propose different things, like here's our premium package. If they like what they see, you can sell it to them. If they don't want that, you can click the remove button. When you're ready, you can add this to an invoice or an estimate. You can add it to a new one or an existing one. You can also add it to a work order. So in addition to going to the estimate, work order, invoice, in addition to going there and selecting things and doing your presentation, optionally, you can go into the My Flat Rate book and give your presentation. You can say, look, this is what we have to do in order to get your heat or your air conditioning on. We have to do this. In addition to that, I would highly recommend this other thing. And then from here, you can add it to an existing estimate or invoice, one that you already have. So this is going to be the focus of development throughout 2020. We're going to be working extensively on improving the presentation, the sales presentation of the mobile software, because that is what you are saying. That's not our idea. Keep in mind, our idea is not nearly as important as your idea. We're listening to our users, and when we hear something over and over again, or if we hear something brilliant once, then it goes on our radar, and we eventually start working on it. So let me do a quick ad, and I think I'm going to make an estimate real fast here. So here's an estimate. Now, I'm going to just, I think I'll go to, yeah, this is good enough. I'm going to hit save. I'm not going to get too far in here. Oh, I didn't pick a customer. All right, let me do James B testing, and hit save. Okay, by the way, there's a new feature that even caught me off guard. I was expecting to first go to a form where I picked the customer and then I click next. But we removed one step due to customer feedback, technician feedback in this case. We removed that one step, that one keystroke, to make it a little bit more efficient. Let's click the little tree here and talk about some of the newer features. We now give you the ability to send a PDF email. We had a lot of people telling us that emails were arriving and they were a bit messed up because we were sending emails through a standard email system, the way programmers send email, but the email receiving got messed up. So we weren't able to control how Outlook would show it, how Yahoo would show it, etc. So if you are sending invoices the traditional way, and you're sometimes getting complaints about formatting or you're noticing formatting problems, then you can send it as a PDF, and that way it'll arrive as a PDF attachment to the email, and it should be perfect. It shouldn't be messed up at all. Another feature that we added is the ability for you to attach files to that email. This would give you the opportunity to attach another PDF perhaps, or possibly 1 or 2 or 5 images. So imagine you took before and after pictures, or you wanted to take pictures of what you want to replace, things you're talking about in the estimate. You could go ahead and attach those files to that email quite easily. Hopefully you've seen the new savings label that's here. We don't have anything populated at the moment because there are no items on this estimate, but this would show you missed savings opportunities. We also have a new accept decline feature that you might like. But moving on, interbank financing. This is the interbank financing I talked about. When you click that, it launches the interbank app or website, and it goes through the interbank system as if you were running their software. You're still in our software, but it has all the screens that interbank apps have if you've ever used their app. The reason why we chose interbank is they are a preferred they're my preferred EGIA member. If you're not familiar with EGIA Contractor University, I'm one of the founding faculty members there, and we try hard to deal with other EGI members. So interbank is one of the best, and we chose to pick them. We're always open to other really popular lending institutions, but we can't just keep adding them randomly because there's just so many. If you haven't seen it, we've also added a load calc. If any of you remember our Easy Load Calc, the software program that we've been selling for, 15 years, Easy Load Calc, this is a block load calc, so it's not room by room, it's not Manual J, but it is a block calculator, very quick, very easy to use. Just simply click Add Load Calc, and you'll see how fast it is. That should allow you to size the equipment, if not perfectly, very close, because if you're like me, you do a room by room, you do a block calc, they're almost always the same. The only time I ever did a Manual J is when I had to, because somebody told me I had to, like for example, a city to pull a permit, which is legit, of course, or it was a weird house, strange house, and I didn't feel comfortable doing a block calc. So keep in mind that's there. Your loan amortization, it would automatically populate with the estimate amount, and you could tell people what their payments are going to be maybe before you get into the interbank financing portion. All right, so a lot more we can say about that, but I really want to move on. If you haven't seen mobile chat in a while, please check it out. We've totally rewritten mobile chat, so we have lots more features, and also it laid the groundwork for chat in the schedule board. What we are going to be doing is building a Windows app. Yeah, there is such a thing. We're going to build a Windows app. And the Windows app, they live in the bottom corner. So like down here, you can see my screen. Down here, Windows apps live down here. Like that guy is actually a window app. We're going to build a Windows app chat program. That way, in addition to your techs chatting with each other in the field, the CSRs and other people in the office could bring up the same chat window that you see here, basically, and they can chat with the people in the field. Now, you probably already have instant messaging or text messaging or something like that. There's all kinds of apps you can already download, so why would we do this? The reason why we did this mainly is because we want to save all of these chats to the database. We want to be able to associate them with jobs, with ordering activity, etc. That way you could go in and you can see all the chats for a job. It might help you figure out what you're supposed to invoice the customer for. It might help you find out how we dropped the ball. You might find people talking about things they shouldn't be talking about. You name it. But we wanted all of that chat information to be inside the database, and that's why we built a chat system when you can go get one almost anywhere. That was the idea behind it. So that is chat. Let's go back home. Keep in mind that you don't have to show your technician all of these things that you see here. There's a lot of features that the average person would never need access to, and I don't want to intimidate the user. It's easy to go in and simply turn these off or hide them. There's two ways. You can customize the home page, which you saw that earlier, but they can customize that themselves, meaning they can get to these things. Or you go back to security and just simply uncheck the availability. That way you can narrow this down to only what that particular person needs to see. Maybe they don't need to see the office phone log and my phone messages and notifications. Maybe you don't want them looking at my inventory. You get the idea. Make that a whole lot simpler. The calendar's been changed. Now, please keep in mind, our calendar is not a schedule board. So we are not trying to build a mobile schedule board. We were simply trying to build a better calendar. So that way, you would be able to see your appointments for the day. Find some appointments. There they are. You'd be able to see your service calls or your appointments for the day or for the week or for the month. And my favorite is the agenda or the timeline. I like these. That's my favorite view. But please remember, this is not going to be a substitute for the schedule board in Tom. It's a calendar. And it really functions and looks a lot like, say, Google Calendar. And it's not Google schedule board, right? It's Google Calendar. So this is a calendar. Reason why I bring that up is we are getting complaints about this calendar. And the complaints are typically, why don't you have the following feature? And that's a feature that's in the schedule board and belongs in a schedule board. You do have a lot of preferences on what you want to see, filtering, etc. You have a little legend here, which is kind of handy, so you can see what these colors mean. You have the ability to set your start time, your end time. I notice a lot of people don't do that. And you have filtering opportunities as well. So it's a pretty good calendar, but it's not a schedule board. We weren't really trying to create a schedule board out of this. Let's go, and I'm almost ready to see if we have some questions that I can answer. Let's go to lists, and let's open up a work order, and I'll search for 900. And, oh, look at that, couldn't find it. I started to think, where'd it go? Here's a new feature. Only display 1 year. The reason why we put that in by popular demand is we had too many results being displayed, and people were like, you know, my technicians don't search for things that are 2 years old, so why return all that? So that's why we put that in there. So here is a multi-day work order. Now you notice you're seeing the same work order in here many times. That's because it is a multi-day work order. And we'll click the little eyeball, and that would open it up in edit mode. And that way we can see it here. So I wanted you to be aware of how that operated. Day count is the other thing I wanted to show you. This tells us that we are in 29, we're day 29 of 30. Hey, you know what? As long as I'm in here, let me make sure you know about a feature that all of you should know about. Under Technician Notes, don't forget, you've got a little button here that opens up a database of repairs. So you could type in something like the word clean and go find cleaned evaporator drain line. And then you might type in, I don't know, coil and find an AC condensing unit coil cleaning job. There you go. Hit add. So what that does is that adds all of those notes to the work order, the invoice, the estimate. Hopefully you're using that. Hopefully all of you are going, yeah, I know, let's move on. It's completely editable. You can also use voice recognition, and you can use the fingers if you want to, but why bother? I would create, if I were you, I'd create this giant database of good quality descriptions that technicians can pick from, and you'll get way better looking invoices as a result. All right, looking at my list, I've got some notes in here. I wanted to give you some search tips, and that is about it, but I'm out of time for that, so I think I'll just stop here. And I will open up my Q&A window and see what we got. And if we don't have Q&A, then no problem, because I will keep going with some of the things that I wanted to tell you about. There it is. Had trouble with my browser. All right, let's see. Question, interbank financing. Is this the only financing company that can be used at this time? For example, can you use Synchrony? It is the only one that we're offering at this time. And again, the reason is we're not a huge company. We're not like Microsoft. I can't really put a team on adding those. So I decided to survey people, find out what people liked. Didn't get a lot of response, frankly, and I don't. I'm kind of disappointed that we don't have more people respond to our surveys and calls for help. I did some research. We picked Interbank. But if there's enough people using Synchrony, then that would be something that would go on our roadmap, as we call it. That's our long-term list, and we would eventually get those added. But I'm going to go ahead and add that. I'll keep this note. I'll go ahead and add Synchrony to look into and see if maybe we can add that, or at least get an idea of who wants it. Can we utilize Tom on the cloud? If so, does it have all of the features? Yes, it does. Yes, you can. Yes, it does. So we offer a complete hosted Total Office Manager experience. We can host the desktop. We put it out on the cloud. I won't tell you what cloud, but it's on a cloud. It's on a cloud somewhere. And you double click an icon on your desktop, and the software asks you for a top secret password. You put it in. Then the software just comes up on your monitor, and then you log in. You won't even know you're on the cloud. The differences are very, very minor. There's a couple of little things that the desktop currently can do that cloud can't, but we're addressing those. So really the answer is 99.9% of Total Office Manager capability is on the cloud. The document links, everything, it should all work fine. It looks the same. It's the same program. We just put it on the cloud. So please talk to your salespeople about upgrading, or if you want to call it that, about moving to the cloud. How's that? You won't lose any data. It'll look just like the way it looks now. You're just on the cloud. And I will tell you, even Aptora, our company, we're on the cloud. So we no longer have Total Office Manager installed on our desktops. The server is no longer installed at our office. It's all out on the cloud. Okay, so please look into that. Going back to the questions, since last update, the schedule board has been locking up. We report this and still have not seen a fix. I do not see it locking up on your board. Has this been fixed? I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware of it locking up. Oh, you know what? I am aware of it locking up. Okay, so yes, I just heard about this today. If it's what you're talking about, I heard about a situation where if you have appointments that have been set up in a very specific way, they can lock up the schedule board. And that has been fixed, but I don't think it's been released. It isn't doing it on my board, maybe because I don't have appointments set up exactly like your company does, and that's why I'm not experiencing it. But I did hear about that today. If we're talking about the same thing, I did hear about that. I know it's fixed, and it should be released soon. Can we export to Excel from the pay bills list? No, you can't. You know what? That's a good question. So let's go back to Total Office Manager, and let me close that guy, and we'll go to Vendors Pay Bills. So here's what they're asking. Can you export this to Excel? If I right-click, there's nothing there. No, you can't. But you know what? We should make a note. Now, I got a bunch of people back at Aptora tech support room. They're watching this. I'm asking Aptora, hey, please somebody write that down, because I don't think it's hard to do. I don't know for sure until we get in there and look, but we'll get in there and look at that, and if we can export that, we will. Do appointment times count in the displayed hours on this schedule board for an employee? Yeah, let's go to the schedule board and have a look at that. And we'll see what that, we'll see what they're talking about so we can all see it. Displayed hours, schedule board. Okay, I think I know what they're talking about. Now, we have a stats button right here. And if they're talking about this, and they're probably not, but I wanted to show this to you, stats here, then this mainly deals with work orders. The only appointment-related things are here. They may be referring to the employees where we show the hours. That is coming from your timesheets. That comes from your timesheets only. Now, we did add the ability to add a timesheet from an appointment. This was done many, many months ago, but that's, relatively new, done in 2019. But please keep in mind, those hours being displayed over here, they're all coming from the timesheet. And let's see, next question. Would like to see just items list without being in work orders, etc. Would like to see just items list without being in work orders, etc. I'm not sure what that means. You might know that work orders have their own items list here, and the only way to see the items associated with a work order are to be in the work order. And then we go to lists and we have our invoice items. And of course, that's going to show all items available to be put on a work order. So I'm not sure I can answer that one. Let me scroll here. Is there a list of development projects that you have in the works that the users can vote on what would be the best for their company? Not really, probably not what you're asking, I don't think. So what we have is a software advisory board. It is a group of about 12 contractors that probably do about 300 million in sales. Some of these companies have 300 plus employees. Some of them do 400 service calls a day on a slow day. Some of these are really big companies. Some are small, but they're very sophisticated. They were handpicked. They're part of an advisory group. And what we do is we lean on them for ideas and to help us set priorities. I will say they're not always as active. If you're one of them, you're not always as active as we wish you would be. But the software advisory board is how we decide on how to prioritize certain things and directions that we should be going. We are going to be creating a voting system that we're going to put on support.aptora.com. So we will be able to allow users, including Aptora, but allow you guys to put an idea on that new feature. It doesn't exist yet, and others can vote on it. So if we go in there and we see that a certain feature request is getting a lot of votes, then it'll probably be on our radar for that. Is there a tutorial on multi-day work orders? We've discussed with the techs being unable to timestamp the work order after the first day. I think it may be an issue with our procedure. So I believe there's a video on it. Go to YouTube and check out the Aptora channel. There's videos being added all the time, and I'm not always aware of what's being added. I plan to start adding my own, by the way. I plan to start going into YouTube and adding videos that aren't so much how to use Total Office Manager, but they're more geared towards how to run your company. Oh yeah, here's how you do it in Total Office Manager. So the emphasis on business management, but also show you how it relates to Total Office Manager, because all of my philosophies exist in this software. What a lot of people are surprised about, by the way, is there is a logical flow in the program. Believe it or not, when people come to Aptora University, one of the big surprises is just how things flow. And the reason why is because this software does match my philosophy on how things ought to flow in a company. And who am I to say? Well, I'm just a guy with an opinion, and I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I have, however, been to a lot of companies. I've personally visited, been inside as a consultant over 300 companies, and I've talked to who knows how many companies, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. So there is a good flow. What I'm getting at is you learn that flow by coming to Aptora University, by having us come out to you and do one-on-one consulting. So when we come to your company, it's more of a consulting role. And then finally, as you may or may not know, live online trading. We would do webinars like this, but it's one-on-one, it's live with your company, and it can be customized to your company. And that's where you learn a lot more about the flow. But check out Aptora on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and type in Aptora, and you should find our channel. One question here says, mobile. Don't know what that means. Yes? No? I don't know. That's the whole word is mobile. For those on cloud, we're not able to export directly to Excel. That's true. So those of you who are on the cloud, you can't export directly to Excel. What you have to do currently is you have to export to a delimited file. So you go here, export list, and then you pick your local hard drive, and then you can open it with your copy of Excel. We are trying to figure out the best way to handle that. It's more of a legal issue than a programming issue. So in other words, we have to work it out with Microsoft to be able to open up Excel on the cloud and get the licensing all figured out so they're not mad at us. So that's the problem, really. It's not so much technical as it's legal, but we will figure that out. We will get that figured out. I'm certain of it. Somebody asked, will you post this webinar when it's finished? Yes, it probably won't be available until tomorrow or so, because it takes us a while to render it and get it posted on the internet. So give us a little bit of time for that. When you can mark that a person needs approval to print an invoice at a certain amount, can you make it mobile specific? No, currently that feature isn't mobile specific. One big challenge at Aptora, and this is why I love doing webinars, and I'm going to do these every month, and it's going to be me because I love talking to you guys. One of the big challenges is this: Total Office Manager, and we call it Tom, but we don't own that trademark. So we call it Tom internally. We joke that mobile is Timmy. So we have Tom and we have Timmy, and mobile's Timmy, Tom's little brother. Reason why I say it like that is because mobile will never be its big brother. An app is supposed to be easy to use, as you know. And our app, arguably, is stronger than most people's desktop. If you really took the time to look at mobile, you'd discover that it's gone well beyond simple to use, easy app. Why, you might be thinking. If I know that, then why do I allow it? Well, that's what people want. They want more and more power. So there's always people saying, hey, can you add this feature to mobile for us? And if we do, it just becomes stronger and stronger, more complicated. But anyway, the short answer is the approval process doesn't yet work in mobile, but that's something I can see us doing. On the desktop item invoice, the alias, how did you turn on the price column? Oh, good question. So let's go to Preferences, go to Items, Company, and here you can see that there is an item alias feature turn on, and then there's a use vendor specific pricing feature right there, and that's how that showed up. And by the way, a tip, if you go into your alias form and you see a bunch of vendors like the gas company that you don't want in there, then go to Vendors, Vendor List, open up a vendor like American Airlines, and go to Additional Info, and look at this button right here. This vendor might supply materials for resale. If you check that box, it'll show up in the alias form. But that's a great way of getting rid of vendors that you don't want to appear in there, because obviously you wouldn't want American Airlines in there. Can you export the sticky text? Sticky text. I think they might be referring to that database of pre-written explanations. You might remember in mobile, we went into mobile and I showed you how you can have a database of descriptions. If that's what they're talking about, currently, no. We don't have an ability to export that, but we are most likely going to be working on that, and we could look at the ability to export it and see if we can't add that fairly quickly. So, oh, I got it correct. Someone said correct, so I had it right, I think, on their question. Can we print a list of unscheduled and scheduled work orders? Yeah, there's ways to do that. So if you open up your work order list, keep in mind you can filter for scheduled, unscheduled, etc. If you aren't using these user filters and global filters, check them out. So I have work orders where parts have arrived. Parts are on order. Cancel. Callbacks. What? 8 callbacks. I have no work order timesheet. So this little thing right here, click that guy right there, that shows me work orders that don't have a timesheet. Work orders not invoiced. Work orders today scheduled. Work orders today not scheduled. You can do whatever you want. So the answer to that is yes, you can create a user filter here, and then you could go to print list and do a quick print if that was good enough, or right click and go into export Excel, wrong list. Let me get rid of vendors. Go back to work order. Right click on this guy, export it to Excel. And also, if you go to reports, I think you have the option to do it there. I say I think because I use very few reports. I look at financial reports. I get most of the information that I want from the screens in Tom. And the reason why we did it that way, in addition to giving you a report, we did it that way so that you could get information quickly without taking the time to look at a report. All right, back to the questions. Is there a way we can mark an estimate billed when we bill from the work order, ? Not that I can think of off the top of my head. We like to run a list of unbilled estimates to make sure nothing got missed being invoiced. I gotcha. No, I don't know of any way to know if an estimate got billed. Let me think. So I'm thinking out loud, as you can tell. Let's go to the estimate list and go to estimates today and check out the form preferences. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is I'm giving you kind of an idea of how to answer your own questions. That's why I'm taking the time to think it through here. What I would do is go through these columns and see if we have an invoiced on here. And I don't see that. So I don't think so. The trouble with this is that many times I'll come up with the answer when we're done. So I might have missed something. One of you users might be going, is that guy crazy? Of course you can, but I can't think of a way to do that at the moment. Now, I will say real quick, I got a lot of questions to get to, but I'll say this real quick. There's a lot of ways to be sure you're getting items on an invoice very quickly. You can go to the estimate and you can create an invoice from the estimate. You can create an invoice from a work order, and I bet you guys know that. That once you create an invoice, you can go to assign work orders and you can grab 2, 3, 4, 400 work orders, and potentially all of the items on the work orders would carry over to the invoice. Now, why would you ever want to do that? Well, let's say that you load up truck A, truck B, truck C. They drive out there and put that stuff into the job. Maybe they bring back some of that and you take it off the work order, and then somebody does billing or invoicing. All they have to do is assign the work orders to the invoice, and all of the items that you put into their truck and they used up would automatically find their way on the invoice. And of course, we're not training, so that was quick. Another option is the reimbursables feature. Probably everybody's aware of it. You click reimbursables, and that gives you an opportunity to see all the things that we have bought for this particular job. And that's how those things get on there. Is there a way to keep track of warranty work and or organize where we can track warranty stuff so we don't miss things? Maybe. That's a loaded question because I'm not sure what you mean exactly. But please keep in mind, when you create items, you have the ability to put warranty information in here. Like the warranty expires in 90 days, the warranty is a year, etc. And then when you create your invoices, you have the ability to see that date and even adjust it if you need to. So for example, if the invoice is 10 days late, you might adjust the warranty period. So you have that flexibility. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Also, we have a complete knowledge base article on how to track things that you need to return to the vendor. And I think this was her question. If you replace a coil or a compressor and you need to return that to the vendor for credit, then you have the ability to do that in Total Office Manager by creating a return item. You sell -1, you put the item on here, sell -1, that puts it into inventory. And then when you go create a vendor credit, you give it back to them, and that turns it back to 0. So it went to inventory, gave it back to the vendor, now it's back to 0. And there's ways to find all that, more than I can get into in a little webinar, but to tell you briefly, that's all doable, and there's a good knowledge base article on that. Another thing to keep in mind is in mobile or in Total Office Manager, it doesn't matter which one you're in, when you go to the customer equipment list, let's just do that real quick. I'm not sure which would be a good item to open up, but I'll right click and I'll go to the history of the equipment. Now, I didn't pick a good one. What this would show you is all the service calls that you've ever ran, every piece, every part, every labor minute, everything that went into that piece of equipment. You'd see the item number, you'd see how much they paid, you'd see the warranty status, every part ever installed in this serial number, you would see it here. Notice there's a customer field right there. It'll even show you different customers because remember, this is history of a serial number, not a customer, okay? So you might have different customers because people have moved, or if you do, say, refrigeration, you might have an ice machine that 3 restaurants have owned. You'd have the history of all of those owners. That way you'd know if that expansion valve got replaced and who replaced it and when, and is it under warranty, etc. So we do have quite a bit of warranty-related features in the software. Going back here, does mobile have an offline mode? No, we currently don't. That's something that we would like to do. We have been experimenting with offline mode, but here's the dirty secret about offline mode. Offline mode messes things up. So when you, this is according to our tests, using Microsoft's own recommended methodology, we're creating duplicate invoices, duplicate sales, duplicate math, duplicate dollars, and it's a mess. And so we're not quite comfortable with adding full offline mode to Total Office Manager or to mobile, to Aptora Mobile 2. However, if you haven't heard, we have a new app called Geo Time Tracker. This Geo Time Tracker app is a mobile app time clock application. What it does is it allows those of you who don't want to give mobile to your entire field, like for example, let's say you have 50 installers and you don't want to give them mobile because mobile is expensive and it's not worth it, frankly. You just want them to clock in and clock out. And maybe you want offline mode. Well, you can have both. Using Geo Time Tracker, you can very inexpensively equip your installers with an app on their phone, and they can use their phone, looking for my phone, they can just use their phone or their tablet or whatever, and they can clock in, they can clock out. The chat system that I showed you, the chat system's built in. You have the ability to see how many hours you've worked this week, so you can start doing the math in your head. You have the ability to enter notes for the payroll people to see that. And it's all offline mode. You have offline capability. You can clock in on a work order. Keep in mind, though, it is not Aptora Mobile. Its mission in life is to be radically simple, super easy to use, and it is. And it's also designed to be inexpensive, and we want to keep it that way. So it's much cheaper than mobile, Aptora Mobile 2. but it's perfect for those of you who have installers and you want them to be able to clock in and clock out without giving them access to Aptora Mobile and without spending all that money. If you want to know more about that, call your sales rep, your account manager, and just ask them about it. You can also go to our website and type in Geo Time Tracker in the search bar, and you'll see information about it, how much it costs, etc. Let's see. Is there a way? Oh, I already did that one. Is there a way we can mark it? Nope, did that one too. Are the beginning? Let's see. Are they bringing the sums back to the invoice list? It used to be there. I think it was removed because the credits wouldn't calculate correctly with the invoices. I'm not sure what that question is, but let's go to our invoice list, and I'll just answer it like this. Open up your invoice list and go to Show Columns, and just look here to make sure that the column you're looking for is in here. And it might be you want balance right there. You might want to see the balance, or maybe you want to see the due date or something like that. So just look at that. If you're talking about balance, there it is. If it's not in here, then we took it out for a reason. And so there's total and there's balance. I don't know of any that we've ever taken out. Those are the two that have always been there. I don't know that we've ever taken any out at all. This is one of the lists, by the way, that's gotten lots faster over time. What is Aptora's suggestion for taking credit card payments from mobile? Is there a way to complete the transaction without keying in the credit card, a card not present? Yes, if you're using the actual app, you do have the ability to scan the credit card with the mobile device's camera. You're not actually taking a picture of it. That makes people nervous. You have a picture of my credit card? No, you don't. And people are worried about that. So you got to convince them, no, I'm not taking a picture. But the current preferred technique in the industry and among technologists is to just simply use the camera. All the little adapters that you can add to mobile devices break easy and so forth. So what we offer in addition to keying it in with your fingers is the ability to put the card in front of the camera. It sucks in the information. It uses object character recognition, OCR. It puts in all the information, and that's that. Now, what about card present? A lot of companies are no longer factoring in card present. One of our credit card processors doesn't even care about card present. You get good rates no matter what. So if you want to know more about that, you might talk to your account rep, but that's the short answer to that question. How can I create a report that lists employees' name, social security number, date of birth, residence state, withholding information, etc.? That's a great question. Glad you asked that. Let's go to custom data views because that's what that was built for. If we don't have a built-in report for that, and I don't think we have a report that specifically does that, the reason why we built custom data views was to give this person just that kind of report. So we'll go to custom data views, go to data views, and we'll look around real quick and try to find one of them that has that info. So it might be a little bit of trial and error. You would come in here and start looking for payroll or possibly timesheet info or payroll register. So here's how you might do it. Payroll register, click that. Then you might go to columns and see if the columns that she's interested in exist here. So we might look this over and say, yeah, that's not quite it because there's no social security number. And we go back to the data views and keep going. And I don't know which one would have it. I do know one that's close because I was in here recently creating a state form. So I'll open that one up. We'll go to pseudo wage summary and click columns. And you can see here, I've got the names of employees. I've got their social security number. I don't think I have date of birth, but we can add date of birth. So that's another thing I should mention. If you find a custom data view that's almost right for you, and it has everything you want except there's no date of birth, we can always add date of birth quite easily. And then it would show up as an update and you can download it. So it's not really a big deal for us to add date of birth to this. If this would do it for you, then we would just add that. But let me show you what we can do with it. We'll go to reports, we'll go to setup, and we'll go to the one I was working on. And I'll just show it to you. I'll click edit. So here's one we were building, state unemployment report. And I'll click preview, and you get the idea. Now I know that's not what she asked for, but you can see how that could be built. We're close. So go to the custom data view feature, look around, find a data view that has all the information in that you need. And if you don't find it, then send us an email or call tech support and just say, hey, can you add the following field to the following data view? Okay. So you might send that to helpdesk@aptora.com. That'd be a good email. I have a program that has many lists, and I can edit a field on the list view by double-clicking on that cell I want to edit. This would be a great feature to add. Yeah, I agree. It is really hard to do, though, because we didn't think of it in the very beginning. So in other words, this is our grid control that we built. And in the beginning, we didn't think about allowing somebody to double-click and edit that particular field. And also, one of the reasons why is because some of that would be really difficult programming because we'd have to do a bunch of recalculating. Imagine if you changed the department, for example, on an invoice. So you go in and you change that department, and you do another one, change that department, change some other department, and then you close the form. At that point, not only do we have to update the department, but we'd have to recalculate the entire general journal. You know, the entire accounting system would have to be recalculated because you picked a different department. So it's pretty tough to do. Be a little easier in Aptora Mobile when it comes to non-financial things. And it's worth us noting. Back to my questions. I have so many here, it's hard for me to tell where I left off, so I apologize if I missed you. Can you tell me why the dispatch board, and then it just got lost? There's no way to lock that. Not my fault, it's Zoho. Sorry. Oh man, I lost it. Darn it. And they don't even have a way to search. So it was a complaint, I think. Can you tell me why? And I knew, this guy doesn't like it. But it was something like, can you tell me why the dispatch board blinks or looks like it's refreshing every few seconds? Well, it shouldn't be, I don't think. The schedule board should refresh every 120 seconds. And if somebody changes something in another room, and it causes you to need to refresh, then the refresh button usually turns red and you can hit refresh. But you might notice, unless I'm misunderstanding the question, you might notice if I leave this open while I'm talking to you guys, you won't see it refresh. I take that back. You won't see it refresh constantly. You'll see it refresh every 2 minutes. It's on a 2-minute timer to refresh, but you can also hit the refresh button anytime you want. So I'm not sure, maybe you've got a problem and you can call tech support, but that's the answer. It should refresh every 2 minutes or whenever you want it to. Now, I guess I should say older versions allowed you to set increments of like 5 and 10 seconds to refresh this thing, but that's long since been done away with. So we don't allow that anymore. We just refresh it every 2 minutes and we turn the refresh button red, and you can always click the refresh button. All right, back to the questions. Answered that. I answered that. Is there a way to see the items list in the mobile without being in a work order or estimate in mobile? I'm not sure what that means. You can't see the items list that's on a work order or an estimate without going into it, but you know what? I don't think that's what he meant. I think I understand what he means. Let's go in there. Let's go home. Let's go home. All right. Wait for that to paint. Yeah, as I read that question, I think I understand that. Okay, so we will go to More, and we'll go to Lists, and we'll go to Work Orders. And you know what? That's not what he meant. He didn't mean work orders. So let's go to Inventory on Hand. Here, you can decide what warehouse you want to see, and that'll show you what is in that warehouse. Now, currently, this only shows you items that are on hand, and I can picture that being something somebody doesn't like. See, I avoided using the C word, complaint. But I can picture somebody saying, hey, I don't like this because it's only showing me what's on hand. When we built this feature, we were thinking, well, you just need to see what's on hand. You're a mobile user. You know, it's not a substitute for Total Ops Manager. This is Timmy, the little brother. We only want to show you what's in truck 1, 2, 3, what's in the main warehouse. So this is a place to go that would allow you to see everything that you have when the quantity on hand. Oh, wait a minute, we changed that. Oh, that's right. See, even I can't keep up with it. Now we do show everything. So I guess that's the answer. Yes, we show it all. Up until recently, we were only showing you what you had on hand, but we added this, so we had the best of both worlds. So one of the reasons why we're changing out the grids in mobile, many of you have seen that we're changing the grids, is we wanted to give you advanced filtering capability. So now you could say, I only want to see inventory that is greater than 0. And it'll filter it out, so that's all you see. So a lot of power in mobile. That should answer that question. Let's see. It would really be helpful to see items list in mobile without being an invoice. Would love this feature. That's somebody else. But I think we got that figured out. There you go. So go to your items list, and you should be able to see everything that you have. If I've missed something, I apologize. You know, it's possible that there's something that you're not finding in here, but I believe that answers the question. And maybe, you know, it's possible maybe they're thinking about invoice items and not just actual physical items, so that's a possibility. Yeah, you know, let me assume that is. She might be talking about labor items and things like that. This is only showing you physical items, and maybe they want to see that, and that's not a bad idea. Can you use Geo Time Tracker from a browser? No, good question. I'm glad you asked. Can you use Geo Time Tracker from a browser like you can mobile? No, you can't. And the reason why is we had to make it an app because it needed offline mode. So everybody told us, and we had a lot of requests for that feature, by the way, this app. A lot of people said, here's what we want you to build. We want you to build a time clock app. We want to be able to assign punch in and punch out to a work order. We want people to be able to chat with each other. We want to save all the chats to a database. We want offline mode. So that way, no matter where they are, they can still clock in and clock out. And we want GPS information, geo info. Every time they clock in and clock out, I want to know exactly where they were in case they clocked in from home or clocked in from McDonald's or whatever. It does all that, but it is an app. There's no way to do that in a browser, so that was a limitation. Does the Geo Time Tracker link with the schedule board? Good question. See, I'm a bad salesman, right? And I'm not here to sell you anything, or otherwise I would have told you all about Geo Time Tracker. The Geo Time Tracker is connected live to the Total Ops Manager database, unless it's offline, and then it syncs up when you're ready. So whenever you want to, you can sync it up, but it is connected to your Total Office Manager database. That way, when they punch in and punch out, when they put in payroll notes, when they do whatever, it is instantly in Total Office Manager unless their offline mode is kicked in, and then it synchronizes when they have access to cellular service. So yes, it is a live connection. It is in there. Can you upload pictures in mobile from Form Builder? No. Currently, Form Builder doesn't allow you to upload anything into the form. And here's why. And we might be able to think about this and maybe we can improve it. But if you haven't seen it, let's go to customer history. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's go to document links. And here they are. So what you have here are document links. These are links to documents. Your form builder is a document. If you save it as a PDF anyway, it saves here as a PDF. So we don't really have a way to add a picture to that PDF. Maybe we can figure that out, or at least maybe we can have a shortcut so you can add images that aren't embedded in the PDF. But it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough because we didn't invent the PDF format, so we're following the Acrobat rules for the PDF. You know, Acrobat owns, Adobe rather, owns the PDF format, and they don't make it easy to add a picture to the PDF. But we'll keep our eye out on that, and if it ever gets easy, then we'll do it. Question, do you need a separate license for the Geo Time Tracker? Yes, we do charge for it. You buy the app, and you have to have a license. So the app is $4.99. The reason why we charge it for the app is we don't want people accidentally downloading it, and then they complain about it, people that don't even own Total Ops Manager. So it's $4.99, and the $4.99 also gets us treated better. When we charge $4.99, Apple and Google both get a third of that, and they treat us better. We just get better customer service because they're getting a third of the money. Free apps, they don't give you as good a service. So you do have to pay for it. It's $5. This is all on our webpage, by the way. Just go to Aptora.com and search Geo Time Tracker. So yeah, it costs money. You got to buy the app, and then you have to have a license for it. And you know, that's how we get our money back on building such a thing. But it's way less than Aptora Mobile. Did you say the tracker app links with Aptora, with the Aptora employee timesheet? Yes, it does. So right now, remember this in Tom, right? You've got the timesheet. Right now, this could just start populating magically. And the way it would populate is they could be using Aptora Mobile, right? You're probably all aware of the stopwatch feature. They could be doing that. They could be putting in timesheet entries. But they could also be in our Geo Time Tracker, and it would fill this out live instantly, as long as they're online. And then if their offline mode kicks in, then it would sync up and fill this out. So yes, they're connected, absolutely connected. Our company still uses the old schedule board. Is there a way to keep that board? You'll be able to keep it for a while, just like you did Windows 95 and Windows 98, but eventually you got to move on. And I know you love the old board, and we appreciate that. A lot of people do like it, but our goal is to stop maintaining multiple things that do the same. So we really want to give up on the old board. We just want to get it out of there. It's taking up space. We'd like to move on. We don't have a date in mind for it to disappear. It won't happen next week or next month. But at some point, we're going to be sending out email that say on such and such date, the old board will be gone. But there'll be no way to keep it forever. But just keep in mind, that's the same challenge that every software company has. Microsoft maybe being the most famous. You got to get rid of the old and in with the new. But remember, if you don't like the new board, tell us about it. Maybe we can't fix what you don't like. So for example, the new board will never be within the Tom container. It'll never be like the bills form where it's inside the container. It's always going to be its own window, so I can drag it off to these other monitors that I have because it was built for a second monitor. And if you don't have a second or third monitor, you really want one because they're cheap. And that's where companies like us are trying to go. You know, we're trying to get to the point where we can utilize all this extra space. As I told you, I have 3 monitors, and I also have my tablet. I've got a tablet sitting right here with information on it. So, you know, I'm a nerd, but there's other nerds out there, right? Okay. Back to the questions. Why can't you right-click on a work order and print it? I'm not sure if he's talking about this, but you should be able to right-click on a work order and print it here if you're in the schedule board. And then if you were to open a work order here, you should be able to right-click and go to print here. And then if you were to open up the work order list, you should be able to highlight it and come up here. I don't think those are available on the right click. Let's look. No, but you should be able to highlight and go here. Now the reason why we did that is because you might select these guys and then you want to do that here. So that's why we did it that way. But hopefully that answered your question. By the way, we're 1 hour 57 minutes into this. Technically our time's up, but I'm having fun, so I plan to keep answering questions. What I do want to do though is real quick here, I want to open up my PowerPoint and say a few things that I wanted to say at the end. Here's what we're doing for 2019. We're killing yellow screens. Our yellow screen errors, those are those annoying errors that pop up. And some of you type things in there like, why don't you fix this piece of garbage? Something like that. We read those, by the way. Everything you type in there is read. We read it all. So if you give us a clue, like this only happens on Tuesdays, or it only happens when I try to void the bill or something like that, it's really helpful. But we have done a terrific job of squashing yellow screens. They are literally down 92%. I didn't make that number up. You know, salespeople make up numbers, right? I didn't make that number up. They are down 92%, but you need to be on a fairly current version. So we're doing a good job of that. We're going to continue. We're adding the network Fleetmatics integration. I mentioned that. We're adding true texting. So right now we have email to text conversion. We also have email reminders that can go out in mobile. If you didn't know about that feature, we have the ability to send out a reminder that says, we're on our way. We're here and we've been there, thank you. We have that. But what we didn't have is a true text message, and we are adding that. It should come out soon. It will cost 2 cents a text because we have to pay for it. We don't have the ability to send out a text message without paying for it because it requires us to have a cooperation with Verizon, AT&T, and all the others. So we have to pay for that. We'll work with all companies, all cellular companies, but you'll be able to send text messages out through mobile in addition to the current email that's in there. But if you do use true texting, it'll be 2 cents a piece. We're also working on making invoice save time way faster. We had a large user report to us that it took a long time to save invoices with serial numbers. What made them unique is their serial numbers had tremendous amount of history, and we hadn't seen that, or at least it hadn't been reported to us. We cut that wait time by 95%, so that's coming out fairly soon. We're going to be improving the shopping cart in Aptora Mobile. We're always going to be working on that. That's a big deal to improve the sales presentation capability of mobile. We are integrating Review Kangaroo. They are one of my fellow EGIA people. They're an EGIA vendor, good company to deal with. We're integrating them. We should have that done this year. Okay, so this is November, December work. We're already almost halfway through November. We're adding chat for Tom, as I told you. We are adding a lot more right-click shortcuts. So, you know, who's going to argue with that? More ways to get around. And we're also working on our Microsoft Excel Super Dashboard. We're going to give this a different name eventually, but we are working on a dashboard that opens up in Microsoft Excel and gives you a ton of great information. It should blow you away. You're going to love it. It is based on my thoughts and Gary Ellick's thoughts. So if you ever heard of Gary Ellick, he's the finest business consultant to our industry there is. Absolute, the finest. He has a Excel dashboard that he built that it's all manual. You have to manually enter all the data. So once when I saw that and asked him about it, and he explained it all to me, I said, you mind if I borrow your dashboard and build it into our software? And he said, sure. So we built it into the software, and we're adding all the things that I'd like to see, and we're in the middle of doing that work. We hope to have that out this year. If it's not this year, early 2020, but you're going to love it. That won't cost any extra, by the way. 2020, early 2020, more speed and stability. That's our priority right now, is to make the software faster and prevent it from locking up, prevent it from creating a yellow screen. I will say, not to make excuses, but stability is not just us. Stability has a lot to do with your environment. So when you're hosted, it's all on us, right? I mean, there's no excuse because we're in charge of maintaining your database. We're in charge of maintaining the environment and so forth. But when it comes to stability, there's a lot we can do. There's some things we can't do. That's always a focus. More GPS and mapping related features. Additional schedule board enhancements. New schedule board only, not the old one, for those of you who don't want to switch. So again, please tell us why you wouldn't switch, and we'll see if we can help. Maybe we can't, but we'll see if we can. We're going to create scheduled text and email reminders. What that means is you can go into the schedule board, new schedule board, and you can identify what work orders you want to have an automatic reminder go out. So in other words, you could have reminders going out tonight at, say, 8 p.m. saying, hey, we'll see you tomorrow. So that's something we're working on. That should be done early 2020. And we're working on, as I mentioned, the sales presentation, still going to be working on speed and stability. And the rest kind of depends on you. So we hope to hear from you and get feedback on you. Reminder, and I'll go back to the Q&A. A reminder, if you want to get to the next level of using Total Office Manager, for example, inventory control, serialized inventory, item assemblies, item alias, fully departmentalized income statement, if you feel like you're not getting enough out of the program, you can invest in training, and we charge for that, yes. Tech support, it's part of your plan. But training, we charge extra for that. But it's critical to have training. Your service technicians are getting extra training, I'm sure, and ongoing training is important. Heck, you know what? You can't even cut people's hair without ongoing training, right? So our software is no different. I really respectfully recommend people get training on a regular basis, at least 5 hours a year training on the software. Because keep in mind, we don't just teach you software, we teach you business concepts, we teach you flow, we teach you best practices and things like that. All right, back to Q&A. Let's see. See on your list that you're working on Review Kangaroo. We tried them and switched to Podium with significant results as a way to work with whomever we want. Well, maybe. It depends on how Podium works. Chances are we'd have to add them, but it's fairly easy to add most of these review companies as far as I can tell. And we programmers should never tell people that. We should always pretend like everything's really hard to do. But as far as I can tell, most of these review companies do things the same way, and we might be able to easily add Podium. So we can look into Podium. I'd like to ask one of my coworkers to write that down, and we'll look into Podium and see if we can do it. How do we duplicate a work order in the new schedule board? A lot like the old one, just right-click and do duplicate. So if you click here, it'll make a duplicate work order. And also remember that recurring feature. The recurring feature is related to making duplicates, and the multi-day work order is related to the duplicate. But I'm going to take this at face value. How do I make a copy of an existing work order? Just right-click and do duplicate, and it'll make an exact copy of that, and you can change it around to meet your needs. And I see somebody else said we use Podium as well. So, yeah, I went to Service Einstein and other places. Service Einstein's on Black Belt, that's on Facebook. Lots of members. Nobody mentioned Podium. Review Kangaroo was a big one. And then there's another company that is pretty popular. I won't tell you who they are. They never returned our calls. I personally called them multiple times, never even bothered to call me back. So I didn't bother with them. But we'll look into Podium and see if it's easy to do. Going back to my questions, let's see. Answered that. there's no way for me to check these and say I answered that. That'd be a good feature. You know, in all honesty, you realize, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but you realize what an advantage it is to be able to ask for a feature and push come to shove, possibly pay for one, because here I am looking at Zoho and I have no chance of calling anybody at Zoho that could offer me anything, right? Nobody there. I'm going to talk to a peon. There's no way I could get a hold of a decision maker. There's no feature request form, I doubt, anyway, that I've seen. And if they have it, I doubt anybody's going to read it. Any future improvements to the inventory replenishment report? Currently only able to run a report for the main warehouse and not individual warehouses. This would save a lot each week. So let's talk about that real quick. Please keep in mind also that there is a feature in here called inventory replenishment right there. And that is a form that keeps an eye on all of your inventory activity. And as soon as a part drops below your minimum on-hand requirement, which is location specific, right? Different for truck 1 than it is for truck 2 than it is for main warehouse. As soon as that item needs to be reordered, it shows up here. And then under menu, you have options like to create purchase orders or change reorder points if you realize you needed to. But this is a good place for you to go ahead and generate purchase orders to reorder parts. You might do that on a daily basis, and then you have those parts ready for your technicians when they come in for their weekly meeting, or if they come in for a daily meeting, you've got a box or a bag with their truck number marked on it. So that's one way to do that. When it comes to reports, let's see, inventory, items, physical inventory worksheet. So looking at that question, it is probably related to the inventory worksheet, I'm guessing, right here. So if I got it wrong, I'm sorry. But this particular report does allow you to pick what warehouse you're interested in. If you do all, it'll show what warehouse the item is supposedly in and how many it supposedly has. And then you can write down the amount that you actually have. And then you can go into various adjustment forms, and they're here. So there's various ways to adjust the quantity on hand. Let's say, for example, though, maybe they were talking about the add sheet. I don't know if that was it, but yeah, this could be it. So they might have said, look, there's no way to do a warehouse. I don't think this is the one they were talking about, because this is like, I need to add the following things from scratch to the software. So having the warehouse wouldn't matter. So I'm not sure what was meant by that, but oh, that was it. Okay. So if it was the thing I just showed, that's a problem with these chats, right? If it was the report that I just showed, it's not intended to be by warehouse because it has a place for you to write down the warehouse. So in other words, that report is simply to hand to somebody who's maybe walking through the warehouse and they're writing down all the things that the company has that needs to be added to the software for the very first time, okay? So there's a place to write down what warehouse you want it to go into. But that's why the report doesn't allow you to print it by warehouse, because it has nothing to do with the particular warehouse that you might have. Okay, so hopefully that answers that. That looks new. Can you pull it up again? Well, let's go to reports and go to company items and go to the physical ad sheet. And that's been in there for 12 years, 15 years, something like that. That's been in there as long as I remember. It was one of the original features, or original reports. So that's what I was talking about. This is a report that you'd give to somebody, like a driver of a van. And you'd say, look, we don't have the inventory on your truck in our software. So would you just write it all down? And then they'd write down the item name and description and whatever you wanted them to write down. But that's not for counting inventory that you have in the system. It's for adding things that have never been in the system, and that's why there's no filter for it. So hopefully I got that right. I'm looking to see if there's a follow-up. But your physical inventory worksheet, that's where you start counting things up and do adjustments. Inventory reordering, maybe we'll do this one, reordering. So we have this report, reordering, but there's no warehouse option, or there's a warehouse option, but it's one at a time. So you can do that. So I'm not sure that's what he was referring to. Go to company, go back to by warehouse. So this is a similar, but a little bit different. Easiest way is to just try both and see which one you like. Hopefully I addressed that. Any plans to redesign the estimates, specifically adding bid items to separate item groups, bid items, and applying different margins at header level to different item types, such as labor versus parts? So I'm not sure what that means, but let's go to an invoice, or let's go to an estimate, and I'll just make sure you're aware of something. You have the ability to establish a default markup per customer. And when you create an estimate, it will adopt that default markup and place it here. That default markup will then apply to all of the items below it in the grid, as we call it, the item grid. At any time, you can change it, and it'll ask you, are you sure you want to change it? You want to do that to all of them? And if you say yes, it'll change all of these. But you have the ability to go in and change any of these at any time. And there's even a markup method called zero retail price. There's one called no markup. So you have quite a bit of flexibility there, and I hope that's what he's referring to. If there's anything else in mind, I don't have any plans to do anything else right here. So hopefully that addresses the issue. Do keep in mind under menu, you have form preferences, and you might want to check that out, and you might want to add columns. By the way, unit of measure, I didn't talk about that, but unit of measure is a new feature in the software, relatively new. So if you haven't seen it, you need to turn it on. There it is. So you first go to preferences, turn it on under items, and then each of your forms has to be turned on. Now, I know the question people are having in their head right now is, my goodness, why do you have to turn everything on? Why does it have to be turned on per person? Why doesn't this stuff just show up? Why would I have to go in here and add columns? Believe it or not, people are so different. You wouldn't believe it. HVAC companies, and like I've said, I've consulted directly with 300 plus. I quit counting. I've been inside 300 plus companies as a consultant, usually for a 2-day event. I've never seen two companies that were remotely similar, or certainly that were significantly similar. Everybody's different. Everybody's different. And that makes our software hard to use, frankly. But it also makes it probably the most powerful, flexible, feature-rich, preference overloaded, security object overloaded program that you can imagine. But it allows you to do many things different ways. If you were willing to follow my way of doing everything, the software would be much easier. So in other words, if I was allowed to build a program and tell you what to do, and you had no say in it, it'd be way easier to use. But that's why there's so many preferences. And I don't say that to be defensive. I just want all of you to hear what I say to my group when I'm teaching. This is why there's so much to the program. It causes us to have to create a lot of different avenues, doors you can walk through. Currently, the labor minutes on the edit item form only accepts a whole number. Can this field be made to accept a decimal? No. I don't know that. I'm not sure we could do that very easily. So let me go to an item like our refrigerant here, just so everybody knows what this is. Labor minutes. He's saying that we can't enter a decimal. And yeah, so we don't allow a fraction of a minute. I'm not sure if that could be done very easily. So I don't know. I'd have to look into that, and I'll have one of my coworkers write that down. Since it's been there for so long and so many people have entered whole numbers, I'm not sure if we can easily allow you to type in 0.5, half a minute, 30 seconds. If you're interested in why we have such a thing, the reason why is because this allows you to estimate how long a job might take. So you could go in and add 1,000 things to an estimate, and the estimate totals up all the labor minutes. And then you could use that information to either enter your labor or just test your labor prediction. You might say to yourself, I think this is going to take 2 full days. And then you look down at the labor minutes that are totaled up and you say, whoa, this thing's calling for 3 days. And so that's what that's for. It also allows you to total up the minutes of a group item, which for some of you is a flat rate task, right? So you have your group item. Let's just open one real quick. Group item. And you put lots of items on there. It has the ability to total up those labor minutes. And in addition to what I just described to you, this could be used for payroll purposes, because one of the great features of our software is the ability to create payroll commission methods. So you can have sales commissions, flat rate labor time, spiffs for this, bonuses for that, 5% of this, 10% of that, 5% if it's $100, 10% if it's over $200. If it's $500, then it's 17.5%. It's amazing the flexibility that the payroll system has. If this looks like something you'd be interested in and you're like, I didn't know that was there, then call and get training and we'll train you on how to use it. But chances are, if you just play around with it, you figure out how to use it pretty quickly, and there's a good help topic on it. And I know it's a good help topic because guess who wrote this topic? It was me. I wrote it. Yep. So it's good. It's a good one. But yeah, I don't write them all. But the easiest way to tell the ones I wrote are the ones that are just flat awesome. All right, enough of that. Sorry to keep asking, but when you go to company inventory adjustments, inventory replenishments, you were able to run this report and filter by different warehouses, ? I could not see what you did. Okay, so let's go to, company, inventory. Oh yeah, so that's not a report, right? So it's not a report. This guy right here is a form that's keeping track of everything that has fallen below your reorder point. So if you were to right click here, you'd have options. I got to highlight them first, but you'd have options here to create purchase orders for these, but it's not a report. So this is just designed for you to come in here and you can pick a vendor and you can pick date ranges and categories and all that. And then the idea was to be able to create batch purchase orders. So that's what that's for. Would like to have the option to do by warehouse. Yeah, so really the only thing that we offer is vendor, item category. So we don't have a warehouse filter. So why don't we look into that? And I'll have one of my coworkers, because many of them are watching. We'll write that down and see if we can create a filter by warehouse only. Now, this begs the question, well, what did you have in mind? And that's a fair question. I like being challenged. What did you have in mind, James? You say that you did a lot to build this software and all that, so we can't be different than everybody else. What did you have in mind? Well, what I had in mind here is that we would have a warehouse person that buys all these things for the entire company and then distributes them. So we weren't really interested in the warehouse. We were just interested in how many we needed. And then we would try to negotiate the best price we could based on bulk, buying as many as possible. And then it would be up to the warehouse manager, whoever that person is in the company, and they would buy all these things. They would receive all these things into inventory. They would pick all the various vehicles. When they do receive items, you probably know that you can receive items for different warehouses. They'd receive them all into their respective warehouses. They would put them in a box and they'd put them in the meeting room. And when the guys came in and went through their meeting, they'd leave with their box, and that's what we had in mind. So believe it or not, we do have a flow for most all of the stuff. It doesn't mean that it's the right way for you. It doesn't even mean that our flow is the best. There's better ways to do it, but we really have thought a lot about this stuff. This makes creating POs for multiple warehouses faster each week. So yeah, I can understand that. We'll see if we can add a filter for that, and it might be easy to do, but I'm not sure till we get in there and try it. All right, going back to these questions, and pardon my delay, there's just no way to easily see if I answered it. The ability to tab through the fields in enter bill or a credit under items only is gone after recent update. Tabbing still functions under expense tab, not items. So let's see, bills list, tab through fields and enter a bill. So let's open a bill and go to items. And yeah, I picked one that's paid. So let's go to enter bills. You know, without spending a lot of time on it, I probably should just look into it, or somebody at the office should just look into this. So if somebody in the office would look into this, check the tab ordering this and make sure that it's still functioning. So what we're talking about is we're in here, we tab, tab, tab. Are we tabbing to the right place? And it looks like we are, but we need to be more thorough and go through this, you know, without me doing it on a webinar. It looks like our tabbing's correct. Items gone after recent update, still functions under the expense tab. So it's tabbing okay with me, but you know, maybe I'm missing the question. And I won't try the expense tab, I won't take the time, but I'll have the office double check that and make sure that's still working. Going back to my question list, looking at questions I've already answered. We didn't know we needed a second monitor to accommodate the new schedule board. Yeah, you do. So somebody commented that, hey, one reason why, you know, can we keep the old board? We like it. We didn't know we needed another monitor. And yeah, you do. And hopefully you guys aren't mad about that. It just makes sense. Nowadays, computers can drive multiple monitors. And the reason for that is because software designers, hardware designers, they all think we should have multiple monitors. So, you know, like I said, it used to be a luxury to have two. I'm looking over at this guy here, my second monitor. It used to be a luxury to have two. Now that's old school. Now it's more like three. And some people have more than three even. They'll have a fourth monitor. If you look on Amazon, you'll notice Amazon routinely sells these mounting units. I have one, I just can't show it to you. They have these mounting units that can hold 4 monitors. Another thing you're going to start seeing the price come down on, it's really expensive now, but soon you're going to see monitors that are huge, 1 monitor. So you'll have 1 monitor, but you can divide that 1 monitor up into 4 or 5 sections, complete sections. So it's really multiple monitors on one piece of hardware, but currently they're really expensive and the price is coming down. I'm making that point just to say that that's what we're doing more and more of. We're building, you know, for 2nd and 3rd monitors. Let's see here. Back to the questions. And you know, another thing Zoho does is whenever a new question is asked, it loses my place. And I have no feature request, nobody to talk to. I mean, that's frustrating. Answered that. Bill items, answered that. Why is it when I want to send a $0 invoice to a customer, yes, I have, don't show 0 balances, it still shows those 0 amount lines? Well, I think the reason why, so I think what she's talking about, and this is the reason it may not be what you want to hear, but she wants to send a zero invoice to somebody, which is a good thing, by the way. Let's say you go and do warranty work. The whole invoice is covered under a warranty. I recommend anyway, that you fill out the complete invoice, all the parts, all the labor, description of what you did, the whole works. And then at the bottom, you add a discount item, and that discount item is called warranty. So you create yourself a new discount item. So right here, discount, and you call it something like disc, and you call it war, disc war, discount warranty, or whatever you want. And then you describe it. You know, everything was covered under warranty. There's no charge today for this, something like that. And it zeroes the invoice out. And when you print it, she's saying, well, it says 0.00. Well, the reason why is accounting people want to prove that it was zero. So like, for example, and I'm not being a smart aleck here at all, if you fill out a tax form and you had zero, you want to see zero. I mean, you would write in the column zero, so nobody thought you was an oversight. So you want to prove it's zero. And again, you may not like that, and I'm totally understanding that, but that's why. So the question is, why do you do that? When I print on an invoice, it says zero. Why? That's why, because we want to prove that it was not an oversight. We really meant to say zero. So that's why. Now, one thing you could do is build your own invoice template. So that way you can have your own template in the software for an invoice, and you can go in and hopefully build a template that has no numbers in it at all. And then when you use it, when you want to create a zero invoice, but you don't want it to say 0.00, then you could use that template. Also, I don't know if it'll work for you because you may be referring to something different, but in mobile and Tom, we do have a convert zeros to blanks. So we accommodate that, but otherwise you're going to see a zero. So that's a relatively new feature that we've added. It's been in mobile for quite a while, but in Tom we added that feature. It won't also convert the quantity field to blank. So for example, somebody might say, because I've heard it, hey, if I want to zero out a blank, I also want to zero out the quantity. We don't have such a thing. But you know, you're beginning to see the tremendous flexibility that's available in the software, but also the unbelievable flexibility that's required because our industry is so different, so different. Oh, let's see here. Bear with me a minute as I sort through what I've already addressed. Is there any way to save my minor tick length to be always 15-minute increments? I change it every morning to be at 15-minute. So maybe that's a bug. I'd like Aptora to check into that. We click Edit here, and we go down to the increment, minor tick length, and it's 15. And that affects what we see here, okay? So I hit save. Hopefully I've figured out hopefully that's what he's talking about. And then he's saying that it doesn't save. And if I don't have you correct, you can always contact tech support, because here's the answer really. Everything you do in here, when you hit the save button, it should save. So all of this stuff should save. You shouldn't have to go in there tomorrow and change any of those things. All right, so yeah, we'll check into that, see if that's not saving. But it did here, but I'd have to close the board and maybe close Tom and reopen it and check to be sure. How do you upload a technician's picture on the schedule board? So you notice I'm hovering over these people and hovering over Amber and so forth. How do you get those pictures in there? Because obviously this guy doesn't have a picture. Go to your employee list and right click and edit, and then go to menu and go to, and too many forms here, so let's close that. We'll go to image, and that's where you add an image. You can have one image Unlike items, there's just one image there. We never saw a reason to have multiple images, but that's where you put his image. Now, if for some reason you wanted multiple images for some use, don't forget that you have document links. So you'd be able to open up their document links right here, and you could drag, as many images as you want onto the document links if for some reason you wanted to do that. That's a good place to put HR forms and all the other things that you might be dealing with. As long as I'm in here, I'm going to go back to employee list and show you something that's relatively new, but I want to make sure you're aware of it. Go to the employee history and check out what's in here. So you'll be able to see year-to-date payroll, year-to-date service agreements sold, callbacks, year-to-date callbacks, work orders, time off requests, customers they've been associated with, all their work orders, phone messages, sales commissions, a lot of employee history. Everything's got history. If you right-click on all the major systems in TOM, you'll see history. Can you replace an item on mobile rather than add a new one and delete the old one? No, you can't replace it currently. And that's just a bit of a limitation in the mobile technology. Some of the reasons why mobile works the way it does is because there's limitations to the mobile platform that we program on. But I do believe that's on our long-term list to deal with. We're trying to improve the whole item grid and make it a little easier to deal with. And I know that replacing an item is definitely one of them. So not currently. Any feature improvement that would include checklist feature for assigning tasks to employees, something similar to the reminder list, but a task checklist feature. We don't have anything in the works at the moment, but that's something that is on our radar, meaning it's a long-term desire to include some kind of checklist feature. Now, remember the smart lists. I know it's not quite what you are thinking. Remember the smart lists, and also remember that we have Aptora Mobile Form Builder, where you can build forms in mobile, and you can have checklists in mobile. Maybe that's not exactly what you're looking for either, but you can create HR checklists, time off requests, precision tune-up checklists, pre-install checklists, post-install checklists, things like that. It just goes on and on. Aptora Mobile Form Builder can do a lot. I mean, it's really a very capable program. When you create a PO in mobile and include items, the items don't show on the PO in mobile. Is that a setting that I'm missing? I don't know. I'm not sure if, I know it's not a setting. I'm just thinking, I'm not sure if that's a problem or not. Let's see. Let me wake up Aptora Mobile and have a look at the PO feature, and we'll just find out together. We'll click More. Whoops, no we won't. Let's click Quick Add. And I can do this from a work order, of course. Add a purchase order. And then we'll go pick the vendor. All right, so let's add an item. Well, let me save it first. Okay, select a vendor. Thought I was about to do that, and then I forgot to select a vendor. All right, we'll do Granger. Maybe pick a customer. Oh gosh, duh. So I'm hardly used to it. This is a new feature, and I'm used to the step where you pick the vendor. I'm used to the step where you pick the vendor first. So let's just pick a vendor, hit save, and because that's what I normally do is I save it. And the reason why I save it, by the way, so quickly is I want to grab the PO number. So I save mine pretty quickly. You may not need to do that. But let's go ahead and add items to it and just see what happens. So let's say I want to order this guy here, this guy, hit add, and create a PO mobile, include items. Oh, I see. I think he missed a step, but I know what he means. When he said include items, I think he meant the little checkbox that, like, you come from a work order and you say include the items and bring it over to the PO, and then he says, you know, I think they're missing. So anyway, let's continue on. As you might know, I can do a whole nother search and it keeps those two checked. A lot of people aren't aware of that. You can do multiple searches and it's going to keep the ones you picked before, and then you can go find something else and you can click add. And there, I was reading his, okay, so he got his answer. Okay, very good. He got his answer. So that was that. All right, thank you for following up with that. And show credit balances in green. Oh, so somebody says, hey, can you show credit balances in green on the estimates like in the customer job screen? No, that's currently not a capability. Not saying we couldn't, but it's currently not a capability to show the green credit balance. Just making sure I understand the question. Yeah, it's not an option to show it as green if you have a credit balance. Back to the questions. Let me get back to some older ones that I could have missed because Zoho. Yeah, so here's a comment. I'm going to read it because it's fair. I want to read comments too, even if they're not complimentary. I, for one, would be happy if you would have a few update cycles without new features, but instead concentrate on making the software easier to use. Like, for example, reduce the number of times I have to reach for the mouse to put the cursor into the typing box, as when assigning work orders to an invoice items, to mention just one. There are many. Also, in some of the pop-up dialog boxes, the arrow keys don't work in selecting the two options. So, you know, fair enough. We are always trying to make it easier to use. If you read our release notes, you'll probably notice that we don't focus on sexy stuff. In other words, we don't focus on things that sell software. And some people, some business advisors, some of my business friends, people that are way more successful than me, they'd say, James, that's why you're not more successful. If you look at it's proof's in the pudding, just look at the revision lists and you'll see that we do a ton of fine tuning that doesn't sell software. Like, for example, we just put a bunch of time into adding shortcuts to bills. So when you come in here and you put the cursor now, not this version, this is coming out. For example, when you put the cursor in the customer and right click, we have a new shortcut to get there. When you put the cursor in the PO, we have a new shortcut to get to the PO. When you put the cursor in the work order number or the asset number or whatever, we have shortcuts for that. We put those all over the software. It took a high-paid programmer 2 solid weeks to do that, and that's not going to sell one single copy of software. But the reason why we did it is we are doing just that. We're trying to make it easier to use. We're trying to reduce keystrokes. So if anyone has ideas on how to reduce the keystrokes, tell us about it. We may not have known it. We may not know that the arrow keys don't work. If we can make them work, we would. Sometimes we can't do things that we want to do simply because there's no programming method available, meaning it's just not possible for us to do it, or it's super time consuming to do it. It could be the case, but I promise you we are always working on making the software faster and easier to use. And the revision notes hopefully indicated most of our competition, they're smart. Depending on who you talk to, they're smart. They work on sexy stuff. They work on flashes and sizzle, and they work on their demo. So their programmers are constantly working on improving the sales demo, and that's smart. We'd sell more software if we would do that. Focus on the demo, just making sexy stuff, just making stuff look cool. So that is that. Going back to my questions. That's a lot of them. I think we got most of the questions answered. Today we had a total of 158 people, and we're down to about 52 of you. So I think we did a pretty good job of getting through the questions. If I missed a question, I apologize, because it is hard for me to know which ones got asked and answered. And then when a new one pops up, the question I was looking at gets refreshed, and it drops to the bottom of the list. So now I know how you guys feel when something in our software is driving you crazy, right? It's nice to be in control. That's why we developed this software originally. If you didn't know it, we built this to run my company, and I'm into control. I like to be in control of things, and I simply didn't want to buy someone else's software and have my business held hostage by them. And I built this, so I owned it and had full control over it and had nobody to blame but me. That's how it was all built. So I think I know where you're coming from. New question. Well, we answered that. So can you replace an item in mobile, or do you have to delete it first? You have to delete it. You can add and then delete the old ones. Do by warehouse. Same question. Oh, he's saying he'd like to do that too. So yeah, do that by warehouse. The inventory replenishment form by warehouse, I understand. All right, looks like I got most of the questions, if not almost all of them. Again, if I missed yours, I apologize. I didn't see it, or I thought it got answered. Oh, any feature that we can email invoices from Tom and have the customer do a digital signature? Not yet. We don't have that feature yet. And that's probably going to be something we're going to have to charge extra for. The reason why is because in order for us to comply with all the standards that are out there for electronic signatures, we have to pay some company to host it. So in other words, we would send the invoice to somebody. It would be out on the internet. They would electronically sign it. The whole thing would be certified, encrypted, and so forth, and then it would come back to you. Currently, we don't have that ability, but I'd like to add that. I will tell you that one of the things that we're currently designing, we're designing it. We haven't written the code yet, but we have a lot of code that we'll be able to use that we've already written, but we're designing a client portal. So we're building a portal for your clients. And that would be a place that we would do that. So in other words, if they had a touch screen anyway, they would be able to open up an estimate. They would be able to sign that estimate. We would capture their geo info, because we can do that with an app, even a browser for that matter. And then they could even make a payment. So maybe you send them an estimate to their portal, and they could sign it, and they could whip out a credit card and maybe put $1,000 down. I would think the portal would be something we would have done late next year. It may go faster, it may go slower. Everybody hates it when I talk about this stuff because, what if I'm wrong? But the portal is something that we're definitely interested in doing, and that would take care of that. What about collecting payment from an invoice that is sent out from Tom that they could click to pay? So that'd be the same thing. That'd be the reason why we'd have the portal. That would allow people to make a payment on an invoice. Now, what you would do is you really wouldn't send the invoice. You would send a link to the invoice, and they would click on that link, and they would perhaps be asked to log in, perhaps. And then they would get to a page that has that invoice information, and they can pull a credit card out and make a payment. That would be part of that portal that I was talking about. Don't forget to show the new feature of being able to email a check stub. Oh, thanks, Roger. Okay, so Roger asked for this, and he wants me to show it to all of you, and that's good. I'm glad. So let's go to checks, banking, the checks list. So sometimes you pay people electronically, like Roger did, and you want to be able to send them an email that says, "Hey, I paid you." So in other words, you did an electronic funds transfer, and they're paid. But maybe you want to tell them they're paid. So what you can do is you can highlight the check from here, or maybe it's more than one, and you can go to reports, and then you can print that or email that voucher. And I guess I don't have that version, so I'm sorry, I don't have the right version to do that, but that's out. That's public. So anyway, you'll be able to go to a check, and you'll be able to say, "Hey, I paid you." And you can email that out. So that's a feature that should be in your current update, because I believe that's definitely public. Let's see. Here's a question in payroll. When doing additional state withholding for an employee, the software does not calculate the quarterly reports. Is there any way the software can calculate the additional withholdings? I'll tell you what, that's something you would call tech support for, because I can't really answer that. I certainly couldn't answer it quickly, because it should. I mean, if you're doing additional state withholdings for an employee, it should calculate that properly on the reports. So there may be something in the question I'm missing, but I want to make sure we don't have a bug or something like that. So call tech support and ask them about that. That's important, because he's saying he has to do it manually. So I'd check into that. Call tech support, please. All right, I'll give you another chance. Anybody have any last questions? You can put them in there. I'm not seeing any. All right. Well, let me say this. I really appreciate everybody signing up for this and coming. Usually only about half show up, but we actually had like an 80-something% turnout, just looking at it in my head. About an 80% turnout. That tells me you're interested in knowing what's going on. And I'm happy, because I'm really interested in telling you what's going on, and I'm interested in making the software better. So I'm glad that you come to these things, and I really want your feedback. Like I said, I'm going to be doing these every month, unless I'm out of town, and then I'll have a substitute teacher come in. But I do travel a lot, but I'm going to try to avoid traveling the first Wednesday of every month. So these are going to be every first Wednesday of every month. First Wednesday of every month. That's said better. And if it falls on a holiday, like January 1st, I think is a Wednesday, then we'll do it 1 week later. And then I'm also going to be starting a quarterly webinar done by one of my coworkers, and that webinar will be more training related. So we'll pick a very precise topic, and we'll train on that topic for like an hour, and we'll record that so it'll be available for you at some point, and we'll start doing those pretty soon too. Hey, thank you for the nice comments. So I'm reading, great presentation. This was hugely helpful. Thank you, James. Can't wait to do another one. I just made all that up. No one said any of that. No, they really did. Just kidding. I did get thank yous. So I know the software can be frustrating. All software is. But I'm hoping you realize, hey, at least I can talk to them. At least I can complain, and this guy will pay attention, and his company cares, because we really do. We really care. We want to have a really good line of communication open with all of you. And if the software doesn't work right, we want to know it. We'll fix it. No excuses. If it's a difference of opinion, at least we can explain to you our side of it. You can explain your side of it. But you should always be able to talk to us about your pain points or your desires. Last question that I'll answer. When will the recording be available? Probably tomorrow towards the end of the day, because we actually have to download it, render it, do a few things to it, get it uploaded, and that'll take us a little bit of time. Okay, so hopefully we'll have that done at the end of the day. Certainly a couple days it'll be finished. It'll be posted at support.aptora.com, and that's where we'll be putting all of them. All right. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you coming here. I thought this was a big success, and I had a ton of fun. I hope you got something out of it. And I hope to see you in 30 days. Do the same thing again. Thanks, everyone. Good night.